Hey, what's going on, Clipper people? It is me, William the Opinion Updike.
And I am positive Chuck Mockler.
And today we're talking Paul George player grade. We're going to be doing the starters player grades up first sort of all week. We'll have hot takes / Twitter Tuesday. So thank you for everybody who sent those questions in ahead of time. And also, arch enemy of the Clippers, Sam Presti.
Arch enemy?
No, not arch enemy, but he did give the Clippers a very nice compliment. So all that and more coming up right about now.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome to Locked On Clippers, coming at you 5 days a week here on the Locked On Podcast Network, 7 a.m. Make us your first listen, kill some windshield time. Let's get into the Paul George 21-22 player grade, which was a little interesting to look at after we've taken a step back from the season. Paul George averaged 24, 7, and 6, a career high in assists.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. We're going to start with the good things and then the bad things and then get to the grade. Will, what is one good thing from the Paul George season?
Look, I mean, I know that the sample size was short.
31 games.
He did play the highest usage rate of his career, about 33.7%. And there's a couple ways to look at this. The positive, obviously, he's a good player who we are able to tailor an offense around.
Absolutely.
It's
Can fit into most offensive systems.
For sure. But it is, like for his style of, like how he facilitates and is on ball in some ways, as well as like getting him actions off the ball. And specifically like the zones where he likes to be and feel comfortable. I think that is good, especially like given his age. You could also look at it on the negative side that, the offensive rating for the Clips was not great.
Sure.
Not a great offense. He is a big part of that.
Yeah. Double-edged sword a bit.
But I think the important takeaway is that he did a lot for an offense. And, you mentioned the career high in assists. Like he really, he was able to rise to that challenge, even in the absence of Kawhi, which really, I mean, like, obviously it's huge, but I mean, like, this roster is constructed around those two.
Yeah.
So take away a pretty big piece,
It's going to affect things.
Yeah.
He started the year absolutely on one. Through the first 20
Yes.
games, which did end up being 66% or so of the games he played, he only failed to score 20 points 4 times. And one of those times it was 19. And he has scored over 30 in 11 of those 20 games. He had 2 40-point games. The Clippers were 0-2 in those games. Like this, we're going to go over some of the games that the Clippers didn't take advantage of early in the season, which really would have helped out seeding a little bit more. But, from the eye test, it looked pretty solid. The defense was also still very good. He had that sick block on Cat. He came back from the elbow later on the season, really with an eye for steals. Somehow it felt like his ball hawkishness got even better.
Yeah, so he actually tied his career high in steals per game, which was 2.2 steals a game in that sort of MVP sort of runner-up conversation at the table.
Yeah, he was a finalist.
Type of season. And that's double the amount of steals that he averaged last year.
Yeah.
And, it's not everything. It's not all of defense, obviously.
Sure.
But it was
nice to see from your star guy.
Yes.
He also, surprisingly, had an increase in free throw attempts, which we all want to see more of, obviously.
Yeah, so 14% increase in free throw attempts per game. And that's even you got to factor in the change rules, which Paul George, they kind of used.
They roasted him for it.
As the butt of the joke when announcing those rules coming into the season, and no Kawhi, which just means, obviously there's more of a defensive presence on him, but you would think that you're sort of game planning more to keep him off the line, away from the line.
Right.
I just think that this is really huge if it can carry over into next season.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like the Oklahoma City numbers once again in that MVP runner-up season. I think he was at 7 free throw attempts a game. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of feel like with this too, it was A, it happened with the rule change, and B, I just thought he did play less games, so maybe that's kind of fresh in my mind. But we saw less of the foul hunting kind of fouls that you kind of
drive where you're he's not really trying to go
that are kind of frustrating, that can be frustrating sometimes to watch. With Paul George, I feel like there were fewer push-offs as well.
Yeah.
So I think that is really, really positive.
Another good thing, he gets a much needed rest.
Yes. Yeah. I believe this is the first time he's missed the playoffs since the 14-15 season.
Which, of course, yes, very good reason to miss the playoffs in 14-15.
Yeah. So hoping he can come back stronger. We'll kind of talk about in our final grade, like sort of what we would hope to over under sort of handicap the games he'll play next season at. So do you have anything else in good before you want to get into a little bit of the bad?
We got to get into the bad.
All right.
When you're the number one option, well, when you are healthy and you're the number one option, this year our number one option was Reggie and Morris for most of it. Yeah, there's just some things to look at. So he played the fewest games of his career, except for the 14-15 season. Played 31. Which just sucks. It's just bad luck. The injury, it felt like he wasn't right even when he first came back. I think we had a tweet where it was like, oh, Paul George is still loosening his elbow up after that shot attempt. And then around Christmas, we got the news that he was just going to be done. So that was terrible. When he was playing, though, we couldn't make it work on some nights when he just went off. Yeah. So second game of the season, he has 41-10-4. We lose to the Grizzlies by 6. Couple games later, he has 42-7-8 versus Portland. We lose by 19.
That was a bastard of a game.
27-11-4 in a loss to Chicago. 26-9-6 in a loss to Dallas. This isn't on him at all, but this was just... These were some rough games that you wish you had back. Mark, mostly the one where he put up 41-10-4. We lost by 2 possessions.
Well, I mean, I think you look at his usage rate for the season, around 33.7%. So his usage in these games, just would have been absolutely astronomical.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it comes at the sacrifice of like other guys getting in rhythm. And not that he was necessarily playing selfishly. I think in all of these games, if you look back at them, he was doing basically what the team needed to do to keep this offense afloat that really, really struggled this season.
Yeah. And he shot 35% from 3. On 8 3-point attempts a game, his second lowest mark of shooting since his rookie year from deep, which is tough.
Also struggled with the turnovers, which is a Paul George thing we've seen before.
Yes.
Highest turnovers per game of his career.
The usage, though, I'm kind of like, meh.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that gives me pause is I think he had like a 10%-ish increase in assists per game and like a 25% increase in turnovers per game.
Sure. Yeah. There was, and these are things like we have such a small sample size, which is why it's hard to kind of look at this. Because like I said, those first 20 games are great. That ended up being the majority of his time this season.
Yeah.
Obviously couldn't play in the second play-in game because of COVID, which is brutal. Hope he's doing okay. Yeah, it was, let's get to the final grade because
I'm kind of perplexed on this one.
I got to give him incomplete.
Okay.
I don't know how we can judge 31 games from the guy this year was the number one option. He only got, I don't want to give him an F because of time missed because he was hurt.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know. I don't know what to grade a season. Like I don't mean that in like I don't know what to give something. So I don't mean it like that. Like I get B.
I think I'm leaning more towards C.
Yeah,
and like there were some noticeable improvements in some areas, but it also did come to the detriment of like some regressions in some other areas. Like most notably, like his true shooting percentages were low. I mean, he decreased in basically every like efficiency offensive stat.
Yeah.
Which I mean is understandable given that like his usage rate and everything, like you mentioned. I just don't know that it was an improvement from what we saw last year. But the counterpoint to that would be what we saw last year was so damn good.
It was really good.
And he played 54 regular season games and 19 Jesus. Playoff games.
He got the one playing. He put up 34 against the Timberwolves on the play-in, 6-12 from 3. Not crazy efficient, from inside the line. But what do you give him? Like, is it a C?
I think it's probably a C if you're willing to take the sample size
on the curve, like for Paul George.
Yeah, and like taking the sample size of like what we saw. Look, man, these numbers for somebody not named Paul George, hell of a season, even given 31 games.
Yeah,
right. So I do want to note that, like, I'm not down on the guy by any stretch of the mind. Just we have the sample size that we have. We saw what we
and
saw.
a weird ending, a gut check ending,
a gut
given
check
the
ending,
COVID
a weird
result.
ending, and we keep going back to this usage rate. Like he is a big part of this offense when he was healthy. But even when he was healthy, was not really a very good offense.
Yeah, very true.
And obviously that's not all on him.
Sure.
Like we said up top at the beginning of this roster, this everything is built around 2 stars.
Yeah, exactly.
You take away one of them, it's going to be a little bit worse. So I do think that Paul George, kept the team afloat as best he could in the time that he was here. And that's why I would say if it's not an incomplete for me, it's probably a C.
And then looking forward to next season real quick, what's your over-under on games he plays next season?
So it's interesting because looking at, I believe he's averaged around 60 games per year, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
For his career. He had 54 regular season appearances and 19 postseason appearances, like I said, last season. Can he get to 50 regular season appearances? I think if he can get to 50 regular season appearances, I mean, that's nothing to stick your nose up at.
If he and Kawhi can get to 100 combined, I'm fine with it.
100 combined, like they're both playing
100 games. No. They're both playing.
How many of those are with both of them, do you think, in the lineup? Or you're just counting
Is
total?
it crazy to say at this point, I don't really know what to hope for?
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't
that's
mean
fair.
that
the only reason I even bring it
but
up is because like I would think, or at least hope for seeding purposes, that like
at least 45 with both of them in the lineup would be ideal.
Oh, I mean that's higher than what I was thinking we'd probably get, but I like that.
We need to at least 41 games.
41 games with both in the lineup. I agree.
You gotta have at least half a season with both of these two guys.
I agree
to feel comfortable, but.
If they only play, like 36 together in that time, they have to be like, I don't know, 28-8.
Yeah, exactly. Your winning percentage has to go up with the fewer games they play. Let us know what you would give Paul George his season grade over on @LockedOnClips. I think tomorrow we got Carl Tart on the pod tomorrow. We're gonna be talking Ty Lue, maybe if it's Zubats just to make Carl mad. But coming up, we're gonna be talking some hot takes, roster construction, all that good stuff. But we got to give a shout to Prize Picks. They have the best DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offer all the superstar players as well as bench guys, only recording a handful of minutes each game. They offer any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, 3 points made, all that good stuff. Right now, if you deposit up to $100, you can get matched with promo code NBA with an instant deposit match. That's fantastic. Prize Picks, you can do mixed sport entries. You take the over on LeBron combined points with the under on Mahomes interceptions in the same entry. It's great. And it's just you versus the projections. It's not you versus any other players or anything like that. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use promo code NBA or go to your App Store and download the app today. Prize Picks, it's daily fantasy made easy. And when you're not making money on fantasy, where else could you bet online?
So if DFS isn't your bag, you got to check out Bet Online.
Yeah.
BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information. From live betting to playoffs, esports, and more, head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. Bet online, where the game starts.
All right, now that we have put down a whole bunch of money on 2 specific platforms, we're doing Twitter and Hot Take Tuesday.
Love it.
A lot of good stuff here. DuBoy Love 3 asks, is Ty Lue as important to the Clippers as Kawhi and PG? I.e., when Lawrence Frank meets with Kawhi and PG this summer to decide who to trade re-sign, is Ty Lue also in the room? That's a great question.
I think he's got to be.
Yes. I don't know if he's literally in the room because he might just be doing his own thing, but I think he knows what's happening.
Look, there's no way that he's not a part of the conversation, but I would also, I guess I don't know, but like Ty Lue actually doesn't strike me as a guy who's necessarily trying to do a bunch of GMing.
Not at all. I think Ty Lue is the guy who's like,
give me the
best
roster
players possible. You know what system I can run.
You give me the best roster, and I will, do what I can do with that, as we saw this season.
Basically, just let me know if we're going to do anything huge.
Yeah.
Would be my best guess. Like, if we're making some A lot of people ask us if we should trade for Gobert. We're not going to really talk trade stuff with like in terms of big swings yet, unless there's some scuttlebutt or something. But I think Ty Lue is in the room. I think PG and Ty are kind of in the same boat where it's like, whatever, I'll play. This is great. Keep me abreast of what's happening. Whereas Kawhi maybe wants a little more input. I think Marcus Morris does too, but I don't think he's in those conversations based on his exit interview. But I think he knows what's going on. But again, I don't think it's a big. I don't know how to say this. It's not a big deal to him. Like he can't, you know what I mean? Like he cares. He wants good moves to be made, but he's not going to be like, oh, Lawrence Frank, we shouldn't like.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if he's like coming to the front office with like, oh, I think we should move X for Y.
Yeah, that would be. I think you're right. I don't think he wants to be GMing like that. But I will say, to answer the question, he is as important to the Clippers as Kawhi and PG.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, we really got off track.
Yeah,
there,
we really took
yes.
that literally. But yes, he is. Sal Clips fan 59 says, I know this has a lot to do with the players and their wishes, but should the team be a little more open about giving recovery timelines? The team was kind of in between development and going for it all season, and I wonder if shutting down Kawhi earlier would have cleared things up. Hey, Sal, you're a person after my own heart, because this team expectations were quite literally first round exit, or hey, if Kawhi comes back, we can go to the Western Conference Finals, and we had no idea. It is from a fan perspective, but like, yeah, selfishly, I want better injury timelines. Like,
yeah, I agree, and I think that there's some sort of thing like this is like, aside from even the Clippers, just like a league thing, as the league sorts tries to like pivot more towards like betting and info for betting and stuff like that,
which is already starting to be an issue.
I think it's like a bad look to just like allow things to be like so mercurial. But at the same time, like I do understand, respecting a player's wishes, and certainly like somebody like Kawhi, if he said don't rule me out, I think
they're not ruling him out.
I think you don't rule him out.
Yeah, for sure.
I just think that sort of is what it is. As far as like this season being a development season or a going for it season, I do feel like we straddled that line, but I also just don't know any other way we could have done it, because you look at the makeup of this team.
If we just would have tanked this team this year with like no picks,
that's the thing. Like,
what the hell are we doing?
There's no pick, and like we talked about it a little bit, I believe, on the last episode. But you also have a lot of vets on this team that are not going to be happy losing a bunch of games and watching from the sidelines.
Not at all, dude.
Like that, it's just like, we've talked about
go out
how
there, get your numbers. Like they don't want to do that. Especially the guys on this team, they want to win.
They want to win. Like I mean, that like winning comes even above them getting their individual numbers. So like, I do agree that it's like it was a little bit of a difficult position to be in.
Yeah.
But I just don't see how they would have done it any differently. Like without a pick, there's no way we're going all in on a development year.
Yeah.
With the vets that we have.
And we didn't really have anybody
we can't afford to lose a bunch of games
other than Brandon Boston Jr.
Well,
like it's not like we had like, you know what I mean?
I do think that we developed guys in like a myriad of ways, and even guys that aren't, like rookies or sophomores or whatever. So
basically it would have been more Amir, Terrence, and Brandon Boston Jr. But like to me, like that's the end of the list. Preston was hurt. Jay Scrub was hurt.
That's a good point.
We're just like, we're gonna put Xavier Moon out there. Like no disrespect to Xavier Moon, but like long-term plan wise,
how does that really tie into anything? Yeah. And I think the development we were able to get this year, I mean, I even think, like while the efficiency and stuff like wasn't great, like we got development out of Reggie, seeing what he can do, what he could push this team to do.
Much development, man's exhausted.
Yeah, totally. And I feel that way about a lot of our vets. Even like they got quality minutes in situations where they had to be the guy.
Yeah.
And now that's not going to be the
Luke
norm.
Got some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be the norm when this team is fully healthy, no pun intended. But
off-season form.
I still think it's valuable.
Yeah. My _RS4 said, was it better not to get spanked by CP3 and his sons? I'm a little torn on this one. I would like to watch Clippers playoff basketball, absolutely, but this year, because again, back to the availability thing, we had no idea what was going to happen.
So my thing
was Kawhi going to come back for the first round series? If Kawhi comes back, yeah, we're going to Western Conference Finals. Everyone can deal with it in the neck. But we don't know. I have no idea.
My thing with this is like I just can't shake the Paul George like prognosis with health and safety protocols, because I'm still like, okay, so if we make it to the playoffs, We got 2 games in Phoenix
without PG.
without Paul George, most likely against the Suns.
Sure.
And then it's kind of like,
And that's not fun.
I mean, like, are there reps to be had for the other guys? Sure. But I think like what we started to see by the end of the season was just this level of exhaustion that like
No Kennard maybe for the first couple games.
Yeah, that I have to be honest with. Like, I think I don't even know that I'm fully comfortable with that. Like the types of minutes that these guys would have had
It's
to
just
continue.
negligence at that point. For
I mean, doesn't it feel a little
No,
bit
you're
like
not,
that?
You're not wrong. That's very fair. I was laughed at by Joseph Fry Ward over text when I said that these guys might be too tired. So I don't know. That's all I'm saying. He did cut out my internet on our last episode. So Tom Size Mansky says, now we're getting to the roster construction portion of Twitter Tuesday and Hot Take Tuesday. He said, I keep hearing rumblings about Brogdon to the Clippers. Is that a genuine possibility? And could that be the end of our long-standing issue with point guard depth? For the record, I think Bledsoe was an underrated contributor off the bench, so you can't be mad at that trade. So here's the thing about Brogdon. He's an expiring next year. He's got one more year after this one on his contract. Timeline doesn't really line up with the Clips unless the Clippers extend him. And then he played 36 games this season with an Achilles issue. Like, I'm not sure.
And he's a guy who I think is great. And if that was the guy running your second unit, I mean, I think that's really exciting depending on the price you can get him for. But like, man, he has had some injury struggles.
It would feel like, and like, it's a mid-level move. You know, I don't know. And the point guard depth thing, Marcus Morris talked about it. Wish we had losing Bledsoe as the backup point was kind of a big deal.
It was.
Like, it really was.
It definitely was.
I don't know.
And, who knows? Who knows what that looks like if we get more regular season games from Norm.
Sure.
Especially, getting into the play-in. If there was a little bit more of a like defined pecking order and like some more continuity kind of there. But yeah, I mean, I agree overall with this. I don't know that Brogdon is the answer, but we do need an answer for what's going to happen with the second unit.
I know what's already happening on Clippers, a little bit on Clippers Twitter and mostly on the Clippers subreddit. People are very excited to watch Jason Preston be the backup point guard next year. Like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
I have to see more to know more.
We all do. Coming up, we're going to be talking the Clippers roster. Got a couple hot takes. Sam Presti seemingly just doing his best to reverse jinx us. I don't know. But we got to give a shout out to Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning? Sir, is that really your car? And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer. Choosing the only brand the warehouse happens to carry, you have access to computers, to rockauto.com, at home and in your pocket. I have a Palm Pilot, still gets rockauto.com. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving DIYers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you can need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go check out their easy-to-use website today and find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
Okay, so we're back with shavings and some good news, or some good.
Is it?
I don't know. Sam Presti, Thunder, famously the Thunder GM,
Sure.
had something to say about the Clippers. He said, "I think the Clippers will probably have the best roster in basketball and probably win a title, multiple titles."
I mean, I agree.
For clarification, the question was: spaghetti better with meatballs or without?
Yeah, sir, is this your handwriting? So yeah, I mean, look, healthy. I can't argue with my guy Sam. He's right. Fully healthy. This is probably the best roster in the league.
I think they abbreviated this quote, and he said, "But not a lot of draft picks."
Yeah, yeah. And then he went, "Sorry." But we're gonna talk kind of how busy this offseason will be. But Clippers Isaiah had a hot take that the Clippers should not make any moves in the summer. We should run it back and try to swing for the fences again at the deadline. We still don't know what we're working with at 100%.
I could not agree more.
That last sentence makes a whole lot of sense.
I could not agree more. And I felt this way even, coming into this year's trade deadline, as there was like a lot of talk, and I think a lot of fans, a lot of people in general were kind of looking for a Morris move. And
Morris and Kennard seem like the two people that everyone really wants to trade.
I mean, valuable.
Yeah. The
val-
pieces fit,
valuable pieces. Definitely some value there. But I have to be honest. I think that it would be a shame to not try to get the band back together for one more healthy season.
Yeah.
And, I think you reassess at the trade deadline for sure if things aren't working. But I just feel like we owe it to ourselves.
And these guys.
So
looking at the roster, here's who are fully under contract for 22-23 next year. Kawhi, PG, Morris, Norm, Luke, Reggie, Terrence, his extension kicks in 23-24. Preston, no idea what his timeline looks like for next season. And then Brandon Boston Jr. Team options / player options. Zoo has a team option at $7.5 million.
Getting picked up.
Have to assume they picked that up. He's also eligible for a 4-year, $61 million deal this summer for the extension. I don't know if 15.25 mil a year for Zoo is where I love Zoo, but I do not want to pay him $15 million a year.
I don't know that he's getting that from this team.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I'll tell you what, I don't want to see Twitter when that happens.
Yeah,
that's not going to be a fun day on Twitter if he gets that full extension. And then Batum has a player option at $3.3 million. Please, Nico. Please take this option. We need you back so bad.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he has like a similar feeling to us in that, to see what this team can really do. I think we owe it to ourselves one more year of full health. And then assess.
He'll probably opt in.
I hope so. I mean, I do think he could probably get more than 3.3 million somewhere else.
Remember the battalion? They're gonna have Clipper Spencer in there during the negotiations.
Yes, I hope so.
Dude, that's what they need right there. And then totally off the books, Robert Covington, Isaiah Hartenstein. Cam Archer has a very hot take. Maybe the spiciest that we got from a real Twitter account that said prioritizing a Covington re-signing will backfire on the Clips. He did not elaborate on this.
Prioritizing over what, I guess, would be my question.
Yeah, like over Hartenstein? No.
Look, the age is a concern. Sure, availability is a concern. I think he is the type of player that really fits the mold of what this team needs. Do you worry about redundancy if there's like Nico and Morris and Covington? I feel like with the way Morris's defense has kind of been trending, I don't know that there's necessarily a full overlap of those players. I think that Covington is the kind of player that, look, man, if we're not able to sign him, somebody else certainly is
really
going to.
A really good team is going to.
And you hope that it's not a Western Conference opponent, is all I'm going to say.
That's a great way to put it. Like, look, he's not going to be making, he was making 12 mil a year this year. He's in the tail end of his years. He's not going to be at the 12 mark again. But we need wing depth. We have two wings who played a combined 31 games this year. And we don't know what the Miles are going to do to Morris and Nico next year. Like, we need as many wings like Robert Covington, who are big pieces on championship teams when it comes to the playoffs, on this team. And then Isaiah Hartenstein, bring him back. I don't know how much he's going to get, but I hope our exception works for him.
Yeah.
He's got a long way to go for playoff time.
Man, I'd love to see Hart on the floor with some combination of Kawhi, Paul George, Luke.
And this is what I keep thinking
I mean?
I'm just like, let's everyone just run it back. And like that trade deadline take from Clippers Isaiah, let's wait and see. We do know this front office is always seeing what's in the water. Like they're the guys at the pier who have like 12 fishing poles in. And like the spotlight trying to find fish and stuff like that.
Shout out the pros at Lake Castell.
Oh yeah,
having Sometimes a good time. You go out there and you're like, man, I got one rod. I'm out here like an idiot,
freaking asshole over here. But yeah, I mean, thankfully the roster is for the most part stable, right? We have 4 guys who might not be on the team. Zoo's probably gonna, so that's 3. Like, we're gonna be all right. It's gonna be an uneventful offseason. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yes,
roster construction wise. What's not uneventful is that it was announced that the Clippers get the 43rd pick in the NBA draft.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Let's go. I'm tired of let's go. We need a new sports phrase. Do you think we buy one more? We're always buying into the second round.
It seems it. Seems more likely than not.
How much money would Ballmer just have to give the NBA to get a late first round pick? $12 million? Do you think if he traded $12 million to Adam Silver, he could get an extra first round pick?
Would Fertitta take it?
Yeah. Personally, if Ballmer was like, here's $12,000 in or $12 million, we might take $12,000 too. Here's $12 million in cash at your stupid restaurants that Tillman owns or whatever. I think he's taking that. Unless it's the number one pick. Then it's, well, how about this? Presti. What if he gave Presti $12 million? No. Presti'd be like 13. I looked at a mock draft today because I was losing my mind, and it just had question marks next to the Clippers because it's this early. Let us know where you're going to be watching the second day of the draft. Maybe we'll get a draft day party going.
43.
43. Let's go.
43 is the new 23.
Yeah. Wednesday's episode tomorrow. Carl Tart joining the show, friend of the pod. I think my friend in life too. I don't know. We golf.
Friend of the pod,
firmly. He's going to talk the Clippers season. We're going to talk Ty Lue's season grade. And we're also going to ask Carl what he thinks of Ivica Zubats, but we already know the answer probably. And then maybe a What You Say Wednesday poll. Whatever else happens out there in Clipperland, again, hopefully nothing too crazy. The offseason just started. We hope everyone's relaxed. We hope you've decompressed from the very weird curse-ish ending to this season.
Have the rare enjoyment for a Clippers fan over the last, however many years of being able to watch as a neutral fan.
Sure. Who doesn't love that? Smiling through the pain. Can't believe this is my life.
Exactly.
But yeah, Will, if someone wanted to review this podcast, where could they possibly do that?
So you could leave a review for this show over on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app on your mobile device. You can also review us over on Spotify. You can listen to us on either one of those platforms. We're also on Google Podcasts. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Stitcher. We're on Deezer. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to the show. You can check us out on YouTube. We mentioned up top we do convention Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Pacific. Let's see what the Clips can do in this offseason and come back stronger.
Hell yeah. Let's have a good offseason. I have been positive, Chuck Mockler.
And I am William the Opinion Updike. And as always, we appreciate you.